You're listening to Let's Talk Creation, the science podcast that's just for you, with Paul Gardner and Todd Wood.
Plate tectonics sounds outlandish to me. It doesn't, but let's just say it does. It sounds outlandish. I mean, the continent's moving and rolling around. Why can't we just say that God made it this way and that plate tectonics people are just wrong, flat out wrong? And here's why you're wrong. Bunch of reasons. Why go to the trouble of adopting this weird thing and remodeling it for flood geology or something? What's the point of that?
Well, I mean, that's a very good question. It kind of raises this whole question of, why should we be doing creation model building at all? Why don't we? We've already said that it's a huge amount of hard work. It involves lots of money and resources to do this kind of model building. So why don't we just focus our efforts on the weaknesses of the conventional views? Why don't we just attack evolution or attack, old Earth ideas? Why go to the bother of trying to come up with models of our own? I think there are a number of ways that we can kind of approach that question. I mean, one response, and maybe you have others, but one response might be that people will tend to cling on to the model that they have.
Yeah, that's it.
Even if it's flawed, even if it doesn't answer all of the questions, it doesn't explain all of the data, until a better model comes along. Yep. You will just hang on to the model. So if you go to somebody and you point out all the problems in their scientific model, and you say, "Look, I can poke all these holes in your model," they're going to say, "Okay, but what's the alternative?
How do you explain?
What's the how do you explain it? What's the model that you can come up with that does a better job?" And until you can come up with something that does a better job, I'm going to stick with this model and work away at this one.
That's right.
And I think we have a huge opportunity here as creationists to say our model can explain the data better.
Right. It's like, analogy I kind of like to use is, you're asking someone to move out of a leaky house that's about to fall down into no house at all.
Yeah.
Well, okay, given the choices, I'm going to stick with the leaky house that's about to fall down and try to shore it up and keep it going, because I don't want to live in no house at all. That doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I think you're on the right. I think you got it exactly right there. And the other reason the other response I would give to that is that, the plate tectonics model is powerful. It really is. It explains an enormous amount of data, and it's very compelling. And so I can totally understand why a geologist would say, yeah, this is probably the history of the continental motion on the planet. So for me, I'm looking at this going, all right, well, then how does that fit into what I think is the history of creation? And the thing about catastrophic plate tectonics that I like, it takes away the argument that there's no evidence for the flood, right? Because you're looking at it wrong. All of the evidence is the evidence for the flood. It's all evidence of the flood, everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. Suddenly things become much more powerful and intelligible, I think. Whereas before, if you're just saying there's some sort of layer where there's a global flood, that's not present. But catastrophic plate tectonics, suddenly, it makes sense. So to me, it's I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's probably something to this. It can't be so compelling and be utterly fallacious. There must be something to it that somehow resembles the truth.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Let's Talk Creation. If you have questions, send them to podcast@coresci.org. That's podcast@coresci.org. And be sure to let your friends know about Let's Talk Creation. And check us out on social media. Thank you.